I want to open my chat box here as well. Anybody? Any questions? Anybody at the moment? No questions, Teresa. Thank you very much. So just to summarize, before we start with the feedback on the assignment, I think I've got about 10 or so assignments to still complete. Yours came in the day after the other group came in, and in total they were close to 100 assignments. So I've done well. I'm below 50 on both of them jointly. But just to continue where we left off on Monday, it seems like ages ago. We finished off by just highlighting what chapter 9 is about, and that's about the marketing communication. Now we know, and I finished off by saying to you, it's all good and well that we have the 4 P's of marketing and that we implement that in all our marketing activities, and we have a brilliant product. We have priced it correctly. We know what our competitors are doing. Our distribution channels are in place, so the products are getting to the different retail outlets. But we have to inform the customers that it happens. And we know that we cannot inform anybody if we don't have a product first. So the product remains very important, but we've crossed that bridge now already. We have the product, we have priced it, we have distributed it properly, but we have to promote it. That's the 4th P of marketing. And the way that the promotion is done is through a variety of activities. That can include advertising. It could be print ads, it could be in newspapers, magazines, it could be commercials on radio and television, it could be internet marketing. Every now and again you get SMSs and WhatsApps from different companies offering you specials. You hardly walk out of a shop and then they actually send you an email or a WhatsApp about the specials that they run. That's the way it happens nowadays. You still have your press conferences, big businesses, especially when they're involved in community projects. They want to enhance the image of the business, let the world know that they're involved in a particular project, because customers like that. Customers want to know that the businesses that they support actually are there for the bigger cause as well, because it is important. Remember when we did the pest analysis in chapter 2, when it comes to those environmental issues, it is very important that we work very efficiently with the limited resources, which is currently being depleted at a faster rate than we actually can supply to the people on our planet, which is as a result of the damage that's been done to the ozone, to the environment in general, the pollution, everything. So businesses who want to inform customers that they are involved in a recycling project, that's all good. Customers want to know that the business is not just after taking their money by asking them to buy their products, but they're also there to invest back in the community where we all live. The business owners also live in that same community that you as consumer live. To communicate to our customers and to communicate effectively, if we take if we go back to this step 1 and analyze what marketing communication is. Marketing communication is a combination of marketing activities that have 3 purposes. A, you want to inform the consumer. B, you want to attempt to persuade the consumer to buy your products. And thirdly, you want to remind them that you have maybe a new product, or that you are still offering the old products and there are specials on. So to inform, to persuade, and to remind is the 3 most important purposes of marketing communication. And as I've listed now, those different methods: advertising, PR, publicity, direct selling, billboards, all of those are methods that is used to promote our products. Or communicate information about our products to our consumers. Right, that's basically in a nutshell what chapter 9 is about. I'll get to answer the questions just now, Candice, don't worry. Chapter 10 deals with marketing of services. Now we know that up to this point, we've had the 4 P's of marketing: product, the price, promotion that we sort of through marketing communication addressed today, and then the place or distribution or your marketing channels. Now, when you're dealing with marketing as service, you add 3 additional P's. And those 3 additional P's is the people, in other words, the customer, the client who is going to use the service, as well as the employees of the service provider who's going to provide the service. You're going to add processes. In other words, there's a specific process that the delivery of a service follows, similar to the decision-making process that the consumer goes through when he or she buys a product. The service provider, for instance, this morning I made a dentist appointment just before the class started. I picked up the phone. I was referred to this dentist because apparently she's very good. I phoned her practice. I spoke to a receptionist. She checked the diary. She made an appointment for me. I will go to my appointment on that day, and the service provider, which would be the dentist, will actually have a look at me. Now, there's a process that's followed. I can't just rock up there unless I've chipped a tooth and it's emergency, then you go there and you hope there's a gap, okay? Or they create a gap for you. But usually there's a process that's followed now, or a specific procedure that happens. The one thing has to happen before the other happens, okay? For the service delivery to take place. And then finally, we also add the physical evidence, the actual facility. You can't, the doctor's not going to examine you via a team session or a Zoom session. You actually have to be in the doctor's practice or office to be examined. Okay, you can't have your knee operation done over a team session. You actually have to be in the theater, and the doctor has to be there as well to provide that service. So in other words, the 3 extra P's that we add to the marketing mix: the people, the processes, as well as the physical evidence, the actual building, the environment, the parking. There has to be, the service has to be offered. You're not, if you're an airline service, you need to have planes. The planes are not going to land in your street and park in front of your driveway and pick you up if you have booked a flight from Cape Town to Joburg. No, you have to go to the airport. So there's a process that's followed, but there's also physical evidence. There needs to be a building. There needs to be somebody that stamps your passport if it's overseas trip. There needs to be somebody that gives you your boarding pass. There needs to be a pilot and cabin crew that's on board for you to take the flight. There needs to be physical, a plane with seats and engines for the service that you have bought. You don't buy the plane, you buy the service to use the plane to get from Cape Town to Joburg. Okay, so those are the 3 extra P's in the marketing mix. Now, when we examine those 3 P's, it is all examined and best explained if we look at the 5 characteristics that differentiate products from services, and that is the essence of chapter chapter 10. Those 5 elements. Can you remember still who they are, what they are? Anybody? Can anybody remember which are the 5 distinguishing characteristics that we use to explain the differences between marketing services and products? Anybody? Give it a go. Can anybody remember? Nobody remember? Ooh, it's a slow Friday. We're at the end of the semester. Energy's gone. Right. Let me give you a hint. It's on page 239 in your textbooks. Those who have textbooks, quickly go to 239. If you're not there, I'll give you 5 seconds, and I'm going to deduct 5 marks from each of you in your exam if you don't give me one of those answers. No, I'm joking. Well, I can't do that, and I'm not going to do that. I just want to get you going. Anybody, the 5 characteristics that indicates the difference or explains the difference between products and services. Deep breath. Anybody? People, I'm not going to write your exam for you. I'm not going to write your exam for you. You need to know these things by now, or at least have some kind of short-term memory. We did this 2 weeks ago. Okay. So this is my last opportunity to help you, and then you're on your own. Intangibility. The service is intangible. What does that mean? That's the big word that means you cannot touch it. You cannot smell it. Thank you very much, Duncan. You cannot taste it. You can't use any of your senses to stimulate your interest in that service, right? What does a dentist smell like? I don't know until I actually go to the dentist. But there is a, quite right, thank you very much, Candace. Tangibility specifically refers to services are very, very much intangible. In other words, we cannot touch it, we cannot feel it, we cannot smell it and use any of our senses, as opposed to a product where you can. You pick up the can of cool drink, you open it, you drink it, and you immediately have a taste. You walk past the restaurant, you smell the food, you go inside if it stimulates your senses. Create the hunger or stimulate the hunger that you've had. It also is inseparable. In other words, the example I've used earlier this morning, if you go to the dentist, you can't send somebody else to the dentist because you hate going to the dentist if your tooth is chipped or if you have a cavity. Candice, would you go to the dentist for me? I have a cavity in no. Then the service can only be performed if the customer who needs the service and the service provider, in this case the dentist, is actually in the same room. I can't send somebody else to have my hair cut. I have to go there to have my hair cut. And the hairdresser needs to be there as well. Okay. That means that the production as well as the production and the consumption happens at the same time. In other words, the customer receiving the service and the service provider providing the service needs to be there. That's what inseparability refers to. We've got perishability. Perishability is the third element that distinguishes between products and services, and that basically means that you cannot store a product, a service. A product, saw this morning, quickly paged through the newspaper before I came to work, saw there's a special on Pick and Pay, 52 years old, and they've got specials that they're running on the weekend, and buy one, get the... You can buy as many of those within the limitations and the T's and C's that says only 10 items per client. Okay. Remember what happened between hard lockdown last year? People were running to the shop and buying those essential items like toilet paper in the hordes, as much as they can fit into their car. Some people, because they can store it. They can store it and use it when they need it. You cannot do that with a service. You cannot book a flight to fly from Cape Town to Joburg, leaving this evening and coming back on Sunday evening, and then decide during the course of this afternoon, you know what, I don't really feel like going to Joburg. I have the ticket, I can use it next. No, you can't use it next week. You actually missed the plane and you buy a new ticket next week. Okay, so again, you cannot store that. You cannot use it whenever you can only use the service for that time that you've actually that's been allocated for you to use that service. You can't rock up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon if your doctor's appointment was 10 o'clock this morning. and think that they're going to actually assist you. Okay. Then there's heterogeneity. That refers to the fact that because of the human component, the human element involved in the service delivery process, the quality of service we're going to experience is not going to be the same with every experience that we have. Okay. We're going to try as service providers to get it as close as possible to that, but because of the heterogenic nature of a service, the fact that when you go to a restaurant, for instance, and you had a great experience, cannot simulate that and expect it to be exactly the same the next time you go, because different people might be, there might be a different chef on duty, there might be different waiters and waitresses on duty and different managers. So therefore, the experience can be, you can try and simulate it to be as close as possible as the previous one, but because the same people are not involved, you're not necessarily going to get the same quality service. The businesses do actually get to that point where, regardless who's on duty, the service quality is still the same or remain the same. They are the ones who are doing very well because their service delivery is excellent. And then finally, the ownership or the lack of ownership. You cannot own a service. You cannot own a service. You go to the movies. That's not your theater. That's not your movie. The ticket gives you access to the theater to sit down for the duration of the movie to watch the movie. If you want to see the movie again, either buy another ticket or buy the DVD or download it or stream it. Okay, so you cannot and don't own it. You don't own the plane that flies you from Cape Town to Joburg. You have temporary access and use of the plane, which is part of the service delivery, but it's not your plane. Okay, so those are the 5 elements that distinguish between products and services: tangibility or intangibility, heterogeneity, inseparability, perishability, and the lack of ownership. That is, in a nutshell, Chapter 10 and our curriculum, so to speak. Right, so what I would like to do now, firstly, I want to follow up with Candace on the question of uploading results on Canvas. It should be any day now. To be honest with you, I exactly can't tell you when. That's why I'm doing the memos now, so you have the memos. And when you get your access to not your result, just your results, but also your the paper that you or the assignment that you have submitted, and you can see where the feedback that was given, you can compare it with the memo that was given. Okay. It also, as I said, I'm available. You drop me an email, we can arrange a session to discuss it. As I said, the sooner the better. I know exactly what you feel like, but it is important to, if the results are not finalized because they are in the process of moderation, then at least you have the feedback on the memo as well as the feedback related to how the students in general did. And that's what I would like to do today by going through each of your questions. And I know a lot of this is obviously related to the first not first semester, to the chapters, the starting chapters in this module, because you wrote on chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5, I think, for your formal test. And then the assignment were sort of a combination of that, plus maybe 1 or 2 other chapters. The 3 parts for your assignment, and I just want to go through them, and I will highlight specific areas where I think you have made mistakes, or where I know you have made mistakes. And it might not apply to you, because maybe this time you didn't make that mistake, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to make that mistake in future. Okay, so I'm going to focus on generic mistakes that was made across the board. For question 1.1, name and explain the major internal factors and forces that can affect the efficient functioning of a business like McDonald's. Now, there's a variety of possible answers here, but if you go back to chapter 2 and you look at the internal factors, in other words, factors that we can control: our mission, our vision, what our objectives and our goals are, What's our capacity? In other words, our resources. Which resources do we have? What skills do our staff have to actually do the job that they're supposed to do? What is the capabilities of our business? Those are the three main or the major internal factors that we can control. Remember, we can control our staff because we recruit them, we train them. We can control our mission statement and objectives because we do a SWOT analysis on where we are strong or where we are weak and where we need to look at possible threats and opportunities. And based on that, we set our objectives. Nobody else sets our objectives. We set our objectives and our goals. We write our mission statements and the legacy that we want to leave, the long-term goals that we want to achieve. Okay, those are the major internal factors. Up to this point, I've not had too many variations on that, so I'm quite happy that the majority of the students have linked the question to the correct answer, because that is the most important challenge that you will face with any question. I no doubt for a minute that the majority of you have all the knowledge already to answer any question in this course. However, the secret lies in getting the right information linked to the right question. In other words, to read the question correctly and interpret the question correctly. I want to advance to question 2 because 1 or 2 students here did a pest analysis for me that added the legal and the environmental components as well. Question specifically state a pest analysis, and for the pest analysis, it's the P, E, S, and T of political, economic, social, and technological. We do not have to go into great detail on each of the questions or each of the specific answers because we have done this already in revision. I want to more focus on specifically the question and to ensure that it's interpreted correctly and to give you guidance in how to interpret it when you sit down and do the exam. Question 1.2 says, list and explain the external environment factors and forces that can affect the ability of McDonald's to serve its customers most effectively. Right. List means name the 4: political, economic, social, technological. Explain means, what does political mean? What does political mean? Political means anything. Remember, these are all factors that we cannot control because they're in the external environment. Anything that will impact on my business that is as a result of the politics, the way the government brings in new laws and legislation, the way the government operates that affects our rating in the eyes of the global community. If there's political instability, those are all factors that impact on our business, which in this case is McDonald's. And then specifically apply it to McDonald's. Give an example of each. For political, for instance, if there are changes in regulations, maybe as a result of bird flu. As a result of bird flu experienced in a certain region where McDonald's get their chicken from, McDonald's cannot now have chicken on their menus until this particular ban is lifted. So it impacts on McDonald's. It impacts on their menu because they have to either find a different supplier for chicken or they have to take chicken off the menu temporarily. Okay, so that's how it impacts on them. I want you to understand that, in my opinion, so far, the majority of problems that I've experienced with students answering a question like this is that they know the element, the political, economical, social, and technological components of the pest analysis. They can explain to me what it means, but they find it difficult to apply it to a specific business. Just think logically in most of these cases. and apply to something that you've experienced yourself. That's why we're trying to identify for case studies, businesses that the majority of you are familiar with. And it's not something that's in a niche market and geez, I don't know anything about cars. So we're trying to use examples that you can relate to. Very important to me in a case like this as well. Again, when you look at your mark allocation at the top, it says 4 times 3 is 12. One mark is for naming, for listing. Another mark is for explaining. And another mark is for the example. Always look at, because when you get your exam question, the question will be stated as it is at the top there, but it will also, in the same instance, indicate to you what the mark allocation is. If the pest analysis have 4 components, that takes care of that 4. Now, listing, explaining, and giving an example should make up the other 3. So analyze the allocation of the marks as well. Let's go to another example. Next question. Okay. Explain the components of the marketing mix. Now, the marketing mix, we already said this morning, those 4. Apply to McDonald's. In this case, it's 10 marks. No, it's 12, sorry, my mistake. It's 12 marks, so it's again 4 times 3. Product, 1 mark. Price, 1 mark. Place, 1 mark. Promotion, 1 mark. What is a product? Now, very often mistakes that are made here is that students say to me, product, and then they give me, product is like, for instance, McDonald's have different prices for different products. That's fine. But I still don't know what the product is. You have to, if it's asked you to explain what the product is. Product is the item that the customer wants to satisfy his need. That applies to whatever product it is. The case study could be McDonald's, it could be Toyota, it could be Samsung, it could be PlayStation. The product is the item, the tangible item that the customer needs and is prepared to pay for. Price. Price is the amount that the customer is prepared to pay for the product, and it's also the price that is charged by the seller of the product. That's how you explain it. Sometimes students go straight into the example, and then they lose easy marks, what I call easy marks, because, again, look at the mark allocation, name the 4, explain them to me, and provide an example. Apply refers to an example. Sometimes questions are structured to say, listen, provide me with an example. Sometimes it says, apply it to whoever the company is in the case study. Both of them basically expect you to provide an example. Any questions? And you're more than welcome to raise it, to raise questions or raise your hands or enter a comment in the chat box when you have a question. 2.1, regardless of their motivation, there are clear steps that the consumers take in their buying decision-making process. Look at the mark allocation. Firstly, you have to say, right, how many steps are in the buying decision-making process? I think it's 4. No, I'm not sure. It's 5. Right, let's look at the mark allocation. It says 5. Oh, yes, now I know. 5. That's also a guide as to how many steps there is. Okay? 5 steps. 5 times 2 refers to list and explain. List the steps. There's the 5 steps. Explain each of these steps. In other words, what does it mean? Problem recognition. What does it mean? What does problem recognition mean? Problem recognition means that the customer identified that they are hungry in the case of McDonald's. Are you going to go to McDonald's if you're not hungry? Or just hang out there because, well, you know, it's a nice place to hang out? No, you go to McDonald's because you want to buy something because you're hungry. So the problem recognition refers to the hunger. Information search. What happens? I'm hungry. Oh, geez, you sit in class now, and you know that you've got the next period off. You finish the day after the next period. and you're really hungry. Okay, right. So what happens? You've identified the need that needs to be satisfied, and that's your hunger. Secondly, when you leave the class, you think of different options. Okay, I know the closest place here is KFC, but I'm not really in the mood for KFC. So you look at different options. You ask people, you know, when I'm really in the mood for a nice burger, what can you recommend? Well, Steers is just around the corner, but there's also McDonald's on the way to Steers. Okay, right. There's two more options. So if you've asked somebody gave you information about those. You also, especially when it comes to consumable products like McDonald's offer you, the burgers and chips and cool drinks, you will base your information search on your own experiences, your own previous experience. Maybe your last experience wasn't that great at KFC, and now you're thinking of going to McDonald's. Okay, in this case, you have certain criteria, which is step 3, evaluating the alternatives. There are certain things that you have to consider before you make your final decision. And that would very much depend, and one of the criteria that is included by most customers is what's the price? Is it within my budget? I know I'm hungry, I know I want to go to McDonald's, but I only have X amount to spend. Right, that's going to affect your final decision. That is when you evaluate where you buy and what you buy. And then you go there and you actually buy. That's step 4, the actual purchase. You've decided you're going to McDonald's, you're going to get a I don't even know what they call the McDonald's burgers. I usually when I go there, the boys just want one of those shared boxes. They don't know everybody's happy. But anyway, let's say you want to buy a cheeseburger. Okay, so you know what you want off the menu. You actually go out and you buy it. Then you consume it. You actually eat it, and it was nice or it wasn't nice, and that's your post-purchase behavior. How do you feel afterwards? Do I feel good? Yes, actually, I feel quite satisfied. Okay, so that is the 5 steps explained, how they should be explained. But again, let yourself be guided by the mark allocation. In this case, 5 steps. You're going to list the 5 steps for me, like in that, and you're going to also explain each of them. And here we requested you to illustrate it. Okay, in other words, not just name it in bullet point format, but actually give me an image like we have on the screen there. Candice, you have done reasonably well so far. As I said, I've marked pretty much about 50%, almost 60% of the assignments. And the feedback I'm giving you now, if you read between the lines, you'll see that the areas that I've highlighted are common mistakes that students have made. Like, for instance, they listed, but they do not give me they list it and they explain it to me, but they don't apply it to McDonald's, for instance. That's not what the question asked you. In this case, there's no specific reference to a business. It just asks you to list and explain. But there were, in the previous question, for instance, it specifically says to me, apply it to McDonald's. Okay, so those are the sort of common mistakes that up to this point, but in general, yes, everybody has done reasonably well up to this point. I'm happy with the standard of work that I've received. It will obviously always vary. And one of the common mistakes that students make, and we'll get to that at the end of the session today, is when the referencing, for instance, are sometimes challenging, as well as reading the question correctly and not providing me all the information that's required from the question. Choose McDonald's products. Okay, right. Here you have to choose a McDonald's. Look at again, 5 times 1. You're not going to get a mark if you list all those 5 steps again for me. You're going to get a mark for the example that you have. And we've actually on the previous slide, I've given you the examples of the process that was followed to buy those cheeseburgers for you. Okay. Choose any McDonald's product and apply the steps that you have now done in the previous question 2.1 to McDonald's. In this case, it needs to be McDonald's example. Sometimes I get a student who says to me, the need, Identifying the problem or recognizing there's a problem is when the customer realizes there's a need that needs to be satisfied. Okay, that's fine. It's a good description, but when it's applied, it doesn't say anything to me. You have to specifically say the need that has to be satisfied and has been identified is that I am hungry. Okay, you've got to be specific when we ask you for applications. Like I said previously, assignments is a good opportunity to really do well and get good marks because you have access to all the resources and you're not under time pressure. You don't start the exam and you have to finish it within 3 hours. You have time to do it, which I think sometimes can be challenging because people don't always manage their time correctly. Oh, assignments only due in April. Okay, then you start the week before and then you realize, oops, daisy. I'm doing an online course from next week on, starting on Tuesday. It's an 8-week course, finishing somewhere in August. There's a certain amount of hours that I have to do every week. There's no online sessions. We just get to work and have to do it. I know if I don't do my bit every day, I'm going to have an entire weekend that I have to devote to it somewhere in July or August before the submission has to happen. So planning is sometimes a challenge. Basis for customer marketing, customer market segmentation. Basis for segmentation, any 2 of those that we've mentioned there. There are 6 there. You can take any 2 of these and just name it to me. Name any base of segmentation. And you can't get this wrong because it needs to be one of those unless you read the question incorrectly. And instead of the basis of segmentation, you gave me the levels of segmentation. Right. Next page. Explain why these segments are applicable to the commercial. Now you have the explanation that you're going to give me is of the ones that you've chosen on the previous slide. In question 3.1, you actually identified 2, and now those 2 you're actually going to apply to Sony PlayStation. Okay. Describe 3 targeting strategies. Again, the word describe says I've got to do a bit more than just name them. Describe it 3 times 3. Describe 3 targeting strategies. It means there's 3 and you're going to get 3 marks for each. People, I sound like a broken record, but the fact is that sometimes students give me 1 sentence and then I think they're going to get 3 marks for it. You've got to be really good at writing and compacting all the facts that's necessary in that 1 sentence if you want your 3 marks. It's undifferentiated, it's concentrated, and it's multi-targeting. Okay, that's the 3 targeting strategies. You will name them and get a mark. You will explain what each of them mean, and you will give me an example. Nobody said here apply it to PlayStation. You just have to provide an example of each of those strategies. Okay, and it is clearly on the screen there for you. Right, let's look at the next question, 3.4. Select one of the targeting strategies, one of those 3. Select one of those 3. Undifferentiated, concentrated, and multi-segmented, and then apply it to Sony PlayStation. So in other words, what strategy would they follow? Okay. Here, again, as it says there, to the marker or the moderator, you can use your discretion. If the student says it is undifferentiated, you get your mark. What's your motivation? Why did you say undifferentiated? Okay. So the marks that you lose, I'm not going to mark your selection, the choice that you've made. I'm not going to mark that incorrect. You're going to get that mark. But if your reason for choosing it doesn't make sense and is not related to Sony PlayStation, then obviously you will not get the additional 2 marks, or maybe just one of the extra 2 marks. Okay, so usually with the test and the assignment, you lose a mark here, you lose a mark there, you think you're fine, whatever, and then there's one question that you get that you actually have completely struck a blank. You've got no idea what to answer there, and then you're in trouble, and then 60% becomes a 50, and it becomes borderline. So I don't want to add to your anxiety, but it is very important to me that you carefully read the questions. The product life cycle, again, product life cycle and illustration is required. Okay, don't just name the 4 times 2, 4 times 2, 4 times 2. Name and illustrate. Name it. There's the 4. In the introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Oop, there's the 4. Explain them to me. Illustrate it to me. In this case, you get 2 marks for actually just naming each of those. Okay, because there's no explanation. Just name and illustrate. So you name the 4 to me, but you didn't illustrate it. You just bullet pointed it for me. You'll get 8 marks out of 10. You won't get the 2 marks, which is for the illustration. Okay. Which stage does the PlayStation find itself in? Again, whatever you indicate to me, maturity, growth, or an introduction, or decline, you get your mark. Your motivation is for the extra mark. Why did you choose it? And does your choice make sense? Maslow and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, here an illustration is required. Describe it. So in other words, you are going to get a description of each of those, self-actualization. And again, sometimes people, a mistake, it's often made. And here I want to reiterate again, read your question. If the question in this case didn't require you to do that. But often the question is structured as such that we want it to be done in the correct order. Now, the order in which these needs are satisfied is from the bottom of the triangle upwards. I would say 1 out of 5 students usually get it wrong when we ask them to list it in the order of satisfaction. Physiological, then safety, then social, then esteem, then self-actualization. That's the order in which it happens, from the bottom to the top. Identify which need the customer will satisfy when purchasing a new PlayStation. It's not going to be a physiological need, because obviously you don't need a PlayStation to survive. You need water, you need food, you need shelter, you need to be safe, not feel threatened in the environment that you stay. It's probably going to be social or esteem. Social, maybe, so you can make friends and socialize with your friends, or esteem once you have reached a specific level that you feel comfortable with yourself and content with achieving most of your goals, then this is a sort of reward for you, because it's something that you see as, it's one of those two, and either one of those two would be correct. Okay. When you did referencing, I just wanted to spend some time on referencing. People, referencing is important because sometimes when you get to the bottom of your, and when you do assignment, this is just general feedback for assignment in general, and it comes down to the overall structure of your assignment. You started with name and your student number and the course, and you can add a student as much information as you want. You can add my name as the lecturer and the name of the subject or the module. Those are all things that the majority of them, but especially your name and student number, is most important. Then a table of contents. Tell me what is to follow, like those assignments that you did at school. Question 1 is on page 15. Question 2, or part C, is on page 17. Okay. And then very importantly, if you, in your bibliography, right at the end, you are going to list, what's a bibliography? Basically, that lists all the resources that you've used. Internet, your textbook, blogs that you, newspaper, that any resource that you've used to answer the questions in the assignment. But you cannot just add them in your bibliography. You have to include them in the assignment itself at the point where you used that resource. Remember, we did the referencing. That there's a referencing video recording and a PDF on Canvas for you. I've uploaded it for you, I think, just prior to the assignment submission. You have to reference in the text and not just add it in the reference list or the bibliography at the back. Those are common mistakes that have often been made and are still being made, even my second year papers that I've marked this week. Your overall structure is what I've just mentioned. Does it start with a name and a detail? Is it followed by a table of contents? Is it followed by the assignment content? Questions, is it in the correct order? You don't jump from question 1 to question 7 and then come back to question 2. Is there sufficient gaps between the different questions and the different sections? Do you start part A and part B on different pages, for instance? Finished off by your bibliography right at the bottom, or your reference list right at the end of your assignment. That's the overall structure that we look at. And if that is done correctly, then you get easy marks. Grammar sometimes is an issue. Spelling shouldn't be a problem because we have spell checks. But again, this is where you lose easy marks. That makes the difference between a 49 and a 50 or a 79 and an 80. Okay. Right, we've got a couple of minutes to go. I think 2 minutes, if I'm correct. This is the end of this particular slides that we've used for your assignment. I'll upload it as soon as my class is finished today at 12 o'clock. It will be on Canvas for you. And as I said, you can have a look at it. I'll also upload the memo for the and the feedback that we have given you on your tests, and then you have all the information that's necessary. On Monday, 9:25 second period, we've got an online class again. You can use the same link as you have used before, or I'm not sure if I've included in the announcement, if I've included a new link, but that's the one. The link in the announcement should be the same one as the one that we used in class for a 9:25 Monday morning session. I'll just double check before Monday morning. And then on Monday, I'm going to go through those final exam preparations, as well as focus specifically on the procedure on the day itself, so you have clarity on what to expect. So we all know that everybody is stressed before exam to start with. Okay, so we don't want to add additional stress to that experience. Has anybody any questions here on this beautiful Friday? Which after yesterday afternoon, when it took me back, I picked up my son at school and said, "Listen, you want to work in London one day?" He said to me. Now, what you see outside is what London looks like 9 months of the year. So it was nice to see the sun again this morning. Any questions, anybody? Before we wrap up the session, I want you to leave happy and satisfied. Teresa, thanks very much. Thanks, Anele. Good. I'll upload this recording as well, so you will have the feedback in a PDF, but you'll also have the recording of today's session. Good. Then I say thank you very much. Thanks for the semester. We have one more final crack at it on Monday morning. Good luck. Monday morning is not a compulsory session. Monday morning is completely voluntary. Whoever wants to and who feels they need to. I'm not going to take attendance for Monday session. So whoever wants to, as I said, it's not compulsory. I recommend that you do, but it's not compulsory. But thank you. Thanks for the semester so far. Good luck with the exams. We'll chat again on Monday, and enjoy your weekend and stay safe, please.